So we have been having a bunch of conversations in regards to the 2026 NHL Entry Draft and where it is the Vancouver Canucks may pick. You see, yesterday we spoke about the idea of Caleb Malhotra potentially preventing the Vancouver Canucks from hiring Manny Malhotra as their new head coach. We also spoke the other day about whether or not the Canucks could draft Caleb Malhotra in the second overall spot over a guy like Ivar Stenberg. Now, Stenberg is the main conversation point that I wanted to focus on today because it turns out the guy that some folks were projecting as a first overall caliber talent back at the World Juniors might not even go 2, depending on who you ask. Now, the reason we are bringing this up again is because of a video clip that was posted on Canucks Army. It's Harmondale on what I believe is the Canucks Conversation podcast going out there and asking whether or not we've gotten ahead of ourselves. Whether or not Ivar Stenberg is a guy that could actually fall to 3. To which the guest on the show replies saying, yeah, it's actually possible. And essentially the argument that is proposed here is that there might be a team or two that wouldn't actually think about taking Ivar Stenberg number 2 if they were given the second overall pick. The example given is the San Jose Sharks. This is a team that if they end up going second overall and Gavin McKenna goes first, they might actually be more inclined to take a defenseman, a Keaton Verhoff or a Chase Reed. Why? Because San Jose already has Michael Misa, Will Smith, Macklin Celebrini, Eklund. They've got a lot of young talent up front at center and on the wings, and they kind of need more guys on the back end. They've got Sam Dickinson. That's like kind of it. I mean, Mukka Madulin is fine, but still, San Jose, if they were to go all the way up to number 2, they might actually be a team to take Chase Reed or Verhoff in that spot. And then you have other teams that might actually be thinking in the same way that Vancouver could be thinking when we had spoken about this Jeff Merrick conversation here. If they're drafting second and it's kind of splitting hairs between Caleb Malhotra, the center, and Ivar Stenberg, the winger, who's to say Vancouver is the only team that would think about going Malhotra over Stenberg? There might be another. In the event that Vancouver drops to 3rd overall, if you assume Caleb Malhotra goes second or a defenseman goes second, it gives the Vancouver Canucks the chance to take Stenberg in that 3rd overall spot regardless. Now, with all this said, let's go out there and review some of the NHL draft lists that we have over here. The consolidated ranking has Ivar Stenberg listed as the 2nd overall guy. He is there behind Gavin McKenna. It's been McKenna-Stenberg for most of the year, with Verhoff following in short order. The World Juniors is really where Ivar Stenberg put himself on the map, even though Gavin McKenna did outscore almost all the guys in the draft, if not everybody. Stenberg, with his 10 points in 7 games for a Swedish gold medal squad, was good enough to put himself in a much different conversation than McKenna at that tournament. I just remember the way we were talking about it. It was like, yeah, McKenna might have produced more points, but the guy looked super immature and he didn't step up when his team needed him to. Stenberg looked like an NHL veteran playing at the World Juniors, despite the fact that he's draft eligible. He's got another year's worth of World Junior eligibility before he's not allowed. So, super mature player, just a total pros pro, and he was able to do some great work. Now, when we look at some of these other lists, let's go over to Craig Button's list, because Button has Stenberg at number 4. He goes out there and lists Gavin McKenna, Carson Carrolls, and Chase Reed above Ivar Stenberg. Now, Carrolls is a really particular name that we actually haven't talked too much about in this season, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that my Vancouver Canucks are not really shooting, I'd guess, for a Carroll's at this point. It really looks like a McKenna Stenberg or a Reed or a Malhotra type is going to Vancouver. Maybe not necessarily Carson Carrell's. But if you take a look at some of these other lists here, Kennedy has Stenberg at 3, Peters has Stenberg at 3. I mean, it's not a consistent 2 for Stenberg, depending on whom it is that you ask. Chris Peters has Keaton Verhoff at number 2. Meanwhile, you have Kennedy. They have Keaton Verhoff number 1, McKenna number 2, and Stenberg number 3. All's that to say is that Ivar Stenberg might actually not be a lock for the top 2 in the same ways that we all thought that he would be. And it's quite funny because this actually does remind me of some former conversations we have had about these top prospects at the very, very top of these drafts over the years. Let's take a look at Shane Wright, for example. This is a guy that was supposed to go first overall for years. Ever since the guy was 15 years old, Shane Wright was being touted as a first overall pick to be. Back at the 2022 NHL Entry Draft. Guess what happens? Wright plays at the U18s. He grabs himself nearly 3 points a game in his draft -1 year. He gets 94 points in 63 games in his draft year, and then he slips from 1 all the way to 4. Or why don't we take a blast to the past that's even more locale to the Vancouver Canucks? Filip Zadina is another guy whose path almost eerily resembles that of Ivar Stenberg, at least in regards to the draft hype surrounding him in his season. Filip Zadina is a guy that in the 2017-18 season, a lot of people said was going to go 3rd overall. It was going to be Dahlin, Svechnikov, Zadina. That's the way we spoke about this draft all the way back when, and I know this because we made videos about it over and over again in the 2017-18 season. Filip Zadina was supposed to go 3rd, and at that World Juniors in 2018, he had 8 points in 7 games played. He had 7 goals in 7 games played. Not only was he going out there and lighting the QMJHL up on fire, but he had one of the best tournaments amongst all of the draft-eligible players. And he was out there scoring the same amount of points as guys like Cale Makar, and he was 1 point behind Brady Tkachuk, who was just so dominant for the USA. There was a lot to like out of Filip Zadina, and with him going out there with getting all of these goals in that tournament, he really put that sniper element of his game on display. And I remember there were conversations back in January of 2018 asking, hey, could Filip Zadina actually go 2nd overall? Could he overtake Andrei Svechnikov and be the top forward of this year's draft? Guess what happened? He ended up slipping, not from 3 to 4, not from 3 to 5, but from 3 all the way to 6. You have Montreal and Arizona that ended up going and reaching for centers, and Filip Zadina went 6th to the Red Wings. He was supposed to go 3rd, but Montreal elected to take a C instead. Can we see a potential similar thing happen to Ivar Stenberg? Maybe leave out the fact that Filip Zadina didn't end up becoming a good NHL player at all, but acknowledge the path, acknowledge the fact that he had a great World Juniors and there was first overall hype for this guy back in January. Acknowledge that now we could be looking at potential teams like the San Jose Sharks, for example, getting into that 2nd overall spot and potentially saying, hey, we value a center more. Let's take Caleb Malhotra. Hey, we value a D-man more. Let's take Chase Reed, for example. It gives the Vancouver Canucks more opportunity to take a potential top-of-the-line forward, and I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How does this make you feel? Is 3rd overall actually possible, in your opinion, for Ivar Stenberg, assuming the Vancouver Canucks drop down to 3? If a guy like Keaton Verhoff or Chase Reed goes 2nd and Gavin McKenna goes 1st, imagine if Vancouver passes on Stenberg for Malhotra at that spot. You know, we had been talking about whether or not Malhotra could go over Stenberg at 2nd. What about at 3rd? What if the Vancouver Canucks push Stenberg down to 4, and then whomever is there, either a Chicago, a New York, or a Calgary, who ends up slipping, maybe they could take Stenberg at number 4. It sounds crazy, but you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, whether or not you think it's realistic, plausible, possible, or going to happen. Thoughts in the comment section below about Stenberg at number 3. I hope you enjoyed this video. 9, and Bye.